Hi there, I'm Lillian, and at 54 years old, I thought I knew what unconditional love meant. I'd given everything to my daughter and her family, my time, my heart, and yes, my money. $80,000 for their dream home down payment. Countless holidays, emergencies, and moments where I showed up without question. But sometimes the people you love most can deliver a blow so devastating it changes everything. What happened next taught me that love without respect is just manipulation, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is teach someone how to treat you properly. Before we dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button if you've ever felt taken for granted by family. Make sure to subscribe, because trust me, this story has a twist that'll leave you cheering. Now, let me tell you how one text message changed my entire relationship with my daughter forever. You know, being a mother never really ends, does it? Even when your children are grown and have families of their own, that protective instinct, that desire to nurture and support it, just stays with you. For me, that feeling intensified after my husband David passed away 5 years ago in that terrible car accident. Sarah was only 27 then, newly married to Marcus, and suddenly I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was alone. David had been my anchor, my partner in everything, especially in raising Sarah. When he died so unexpectedly, it felt like half of my world just vanished overnight. But you know what kept me going? My daughter and her growing family. Sarah and Marcus had been trying for children. And when little Emma was born 2 years after David's death, it felt like a gift from above. Then came Tyler, and finally Daniel. 3 beautiful grandchildren who filled the enormous hole in my heart. The life insurance settlement and David's pension meant I was financially comfortable. More than comfortable, actually. David had always been careful about money, and he'd made sure I'd be taken care of. But what good is financial security when you're eating dinner alone every night? That's where my family came in. They became my purpose, my reason for getting up each morning. I remember the day Sarah and Marcus came to me about buying a house. They'd been renting this cramped 2-bedroom apartment, and with Emma crawling everywhere and Sarah pregnant with Tyler, they desperately needed more space. They'd found this gorgeous 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs with a big backyard and excellent schools. The problem was the down payment. Even with both of them working, saving $80,000 felt impossible with a baby and another on the way. I didn't hesitate for even a second. Consider it done, I told them over Sunday dinner. The looks on their faces, the relief and gratitude it made every penny worth it. Sarah actually cried and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Mum, I promise we'll pay you back," she said. "We're family forever. We'll take care of you just like you're taking care of us." Those words meant everything to me. After David died, I'd worried constantly about becoming a burden, about growing old, alone, and forgotten. But Sarah's promise reassured me that I'd always have a place in their lives, that my investment in their happiness was also an investment in my own future security and belonging. The house purchase went smoothly, and suddenly my little family had this beautiful home with space for everyone. I loved driving over there, watching the kids play in that big backyard, hosting birthday parties in their spacious living room. Every holiday, every celebration happened there, and I was always right in the center of it all. The proud grandmother and mother who'd made it all possible. I established a tradition of weekly family dinners alternating between my house and theirs. These weren't just meals, they were the foundation of our relationship. We'd talk about everything, the kids' school activities, Marcus's job at the tech company, Sarah's part-time work at the local marketing firm. I'd bring groceries, often cook the entire meal myself, and always went home with a heart full of joy and purpose. Looking back now, I realize how completely my identity had become wrapped up in being their provider and supporter. When the washing machine broke, I bought them a new one. When the car needed major repairs, I covered it without being asked. Emergency babysitting, last-minute financial help, holiday gifts that were far too generous. I justified it all as grandmotherly love. But deep down, I think I was also buying my place in their lives, ensuring I'd always be needed and wanted. About 2 years after they moved into the house, I started noticing small changes. Nothing dramatic at first, just subtle shifts that made me feel slightly off balance. Sarah began mentioning their new friends more often, couples they'd met through the kids' private school or Marcus's work. These were successful people with impressive jobs and expensive tastes, the kind of people who took winter vacations to Aspen and summer trips to the Hamptons. "You'd love Jessica and Brad," Sarah would say about one couple. "They're so down to earth despite having all that money." Or she'd mention how another couple, the Hendersons, had invited them to some charity gala. At first I was happy for them. Making friends as adults isn't easy, especially with young children, and I wanted them to have a rich social life. But gradually I realized these new friendships were creating distance between us. Our weekly family dinners became bi-weekly, then monthly, because they had couples' night out or dinner parties with friends. When I'd suggest activities together, Sarah would often respond with, "Oh, we already made plans with the Johnsons that weekend." It wasn't intentionally hurtful, but it stung nonetheless. Marcus got a significant promotion around this time, and Sarah moved from part-time to full-time work at a more prestigious marketing firm downtown. Suddenly, their lifestyle began reflecting their increased income and elevated social status. I'd arrive at their house to find new furniture, expensive artwork, a renovated kitchen with granite countertops, and stainless steel appliances. Their cars went from practical sedans to luxury SUVs. "Business is really good," Marcus would explain when I complimented their latest purchase. "We're finally able to enjoy the fruits of our labor." There was the pride in his voice, and I was genuinely happy for their success. But sometimes I wondered if they remembered who had made that success possible in the first place. The children were enrolled in increasingly expensive activities. Emma started taking horseback riding lessons. Tyler began private tennis coaching. And even little Daniel was in some exclusive toddler program that cost more per month than many people's rent. When I'd offer to help with these costs, Sarah would wave me off. "We've got it covered, Mum. We're doing really well now." I started feeling like an outsider at family gatherings. Conversations revolved around people I didn't know, places I'd never been, experiences I couldn't relate to. When I'd try to contribute stories about my book club or volunteer work at the local shelter, the response was polite but disinterested. Sarah would nod and say, "That's nice, Mum," then immediately return to discussing their latest wine-tasting event or weekend getaway. The age gap between myself and their new friends became a frequent topic of conversation. "It's so funny," Sarah mentioned one evening. "Jessica was shocked when I told her you were only 54. She said you seemed much older." At first I laughed it off, but comments like these became more frequent. References to my vintage perspective on things, jokes about me not understanding their technology or social media habits. Gentle suggestions that I might not enjoy certain activities because they'd be too young for me. I began to realize I was being categorized as the elderly mother, rather than the vibrant woman I still felt like inside. My attempts to maintain our close relationship were met with increasing politeness rather than genuine warmth. It was as if I'd become a duty rather than a desire in their lives. Despite these growing tensions, one tradition remained sacred in our family: our annual summer vacation. For the past 4 years, I'd planned and paid for elaborate trips that brought us all together. These weren't simple weekend getaways. These were week-long adventures that created the kind of memories I treasured most. Last year's trip to Lake Tahoe had been absolutely magical. I'd rented a beautiful cabin right on the water, big enough for all of us, with stunning views and a private dock. The total cost was $4,500. But seeing Emma catch her first fish, watching Tyler learn to kayak, and having Daniel build sandcastles on the beach made every penny worthwhile. We'd spent evenings around the fire pit roasting marshmallows and telling stories. Sarah and Marcus had seemed genuinely relaxed and grateful constantly, thanking me for making such a wonderful week possible. Those vacation photos still sat on my mantle, reminders of what family togetherness looked like. Sarah laughing as she helped Daniel with his life jacket. Marcus teaching Tyler to skip stones. All of us squeezed together on the cabin's big couch for our traditional family portrait. These trips represented everything I loved about our relationship, concentrated doses of pure family joy. So when it came time to plan this year's vacation, I threw myself into the research with even more enthusiasm than usual. I'd found the perfect spot, a luxury beachfront rental in Destin, Florida. The house was absolutely gorgeous. 6 bedrooms with direct beach access, a private pool, and a game room that would keep the kids entertained for hours. The rental cost was $6,800 for the week, significantly more than previous years. But Sarah and Marcus had been working so hard, and I wanted to give them something truly special. I spent weeks planning every detail. Dolphin watching tours for the kids, tickets to a nearby amusement park, reservations at the best family restaurants in the area. I even booked spa treatments for Sarah and myself at the resort down the beach, imagining hours of mother-daughter bonding while getting massages and facials. It was going to be our most luxurious vacation yet. The beach house had everything we could possibly need. A fully equipped kitchen where I planned to make my famous pancakes for the kids every morning. Beach toys and boogie boards included with the rental, even a ping-pong table for rainy day entertainment. I'd created detailed itineraries for each day, balancing active adventures with relaxing beach time, making sure there was something special for every family member. I bought new clothes, specifically for the trip, summery dresses, and comfortable walking shoes for our planned adventures. I'd already purchased gifts for each grandchild to open on the first day of vacation, a tradition I'd started 3 years ago. Books for Emma, action figures for Tyler, and soft toys for Daniel, all carefully selected and wrapped with vacation-themed paper. When I shared the initial details with Sarah and Marcus, they seemed excited and appreciative. "Mom, this looks incredible," Sarah had said when I showed her photos of the beach house. "The kids are going to lose their minds with excitement." Marcus nodded approvingly at the itinerary, particularly interested in the deep-sea fishing expedition I'd arranged for the adults. But as the departure date approached, I noticed their communication becoming oddly evasive. When I'd text with specific questions about timing or logistics, responses came slowly and felt strangely non-committal. Sarah stopped initiating conversations about the trip, and Marcus seemed distracted whenever vacation planning came up during family dinners. I attributed their behavior to work stress. Both of them had been putting in long hours lately, and I figured they were just overwhelmed with tying up loose ends before taking a week off. I actually felt proud of myself for handling all the planning details, imagining how relieved they'd be to simply show up and enjoy a perfectly organized vacation. The night before our scheduled departure, I felt genuinely excited. My suitcases were packed, gifts were wrapped and ready, and I'd even prepared a cooler full of snacks for the drive to Florida. Everything was perfect, exactly the way I'd dreamed it would be. I was in my bedroom doing a final check of my suitcase and mentally reviewing our departure schedule when my phone chimed with a text message. It was from Sarah, sent at 7:32 in the evening, less than 12 hours before we were supposed to leave for the airport. "Mum, we've decided this vacation should just be immediate family. The kids need quality time with just me and Marcus. We hope you understand." I stared at that message for what felt like an eternity, reading it over and over again, certain I must be misunderstanding something. Immediate family. What was I, if not immediate family? I was the one who'd planned this entire trip. Paid for every single detail, spent weeks organizing activities specifically designed to create beautiful memories together. My hands were actually shaking as I tried to call Sarah's phone. It went straight to voicemail. I called again immediately. Voicemail again. Then I tried Marcus's number, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Also, voicemail. I waited 15 minutes and sent a text back. Sarah, I think there's been some misunderstanding. I've planned and paid for this entire trip. Can we please talk about this? Her response came 40 minutes later. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. We've already made arrangements. Arrangements? What kind of arrangements? I'd been the one making all the arrangements for months. The rental was in my name, paid with my credit card, confirmed with my contact information. What possible arrangements could they have made without involving me? That's when I made the mistake of checking social media. Sarah had posted a family photo from earlier that day, all of them wearing matching beach-themed outfits, with a caption about their exciting family adventure starting tomorrow. The comments were full of friends wishing them a wonderful trip. But what made my blood run cold was a comment from Marcus's mother, Patricia. So excited to finally meet those beautiful grandchildren, see you in Florida. In that moment, everything became horrifyingly clear. They hadn't excluded me from the vacation. They'd replaced me. Marcus's parents, who lived in California and rarely visited, who'd never shown much interest in the grandchildren before, were taking my place on the trip I'd planned and paid for. I scrolled through more photos on Patricia's Facebook page and found her recent posts about finally getting quality time with our Florida grandchildren and buying beach vacation clothes for our special trip. She'd even posted a photo of expensive gifts she'd purchased for Emma, Tyler, and Daniel. The cruelty of the timing hit me like a physical blow. They'd waited until the very last minute to exclude me, ensuring I couldn't make alternative plans or challenge their decision. My packed suitcases sat open on my bed, my carefully selected vacation clothes now looking pathetic and unnecessary. The wrapped gifts for the grandchildren mocked me from the corner where I'd placed them ready for morning departure. But what hurt most was the calculated nature of it all. This wasn't a spontaneous decision or a miscommunication. They'd planned this exclusion while letting me continue organizing and paying for everything. They'd watched me get excited about spa days with Sarah, listened to me describe the activities I'd planned for the grandchildren, nodded approvingly at my itineraries, all while knowing they had no intention of including me. I spent that entire night sitting in my kitchen surrounded by vacation snacks I'd prepared, staring at confirmations and receipts for a trip I'd apparently been uninvited to attend. The betrayal felt complete and devastating, but underneath the hurt, something else was beginning to build. Something that would change everything. I didn't sleep at all that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, methodically going through 5 years of financial records. Bank statements, cancelled checks, credit card receipts, loan documents. I documented every single dollar I'd given Sarah and Marcus since David's death, and the numbers were staggering even to me. The house down payment, $80,000. Emergency car repairs, $12,000. New appliances over the years, $8,000. Private school tuition assistance, $15,000. Holiday and birthday gifts, approximately $7,000. Vacation costs $18,000, including this Florida trip. Miscellaneous emergency loans and support, $6,000. The total came to $146,000. Nearly $150,000 I'd given them out of love support and desire to help them build a beautiful life. Money that had come from David's life insurance, his pension, and my careful savings over decades of marriage. But it wasn't just the money that bothered me as I sat there in the dark. It was the pattern I could now see clearly when I looked at all the evidence together. Every major financial contribution had been followed by increased distance. Every time I'd solved a problem or provided support, they'd responded by pulling further away, as if my help somehow diminished rather than strengthened our relationship. I pulled out the original loan documents from the house purchase papers I hadn't looked at in 3 years. David had always been meticulous about legal details, and he'd insisted I work with our family attorney when making such a large financial commitment. As I reread the documents, I found clauses I'd completely forgotten about. Language protecting my investment. If circumstances changed, if the relationship deteriorated, if my financial contribution was not properly acknowledged. At 6 in the morning, I called Robert Hamilton, our family attorney, and David's longtime friend. He'd been the one to help me navigate the legal complexities after David's death, and he'd structured the house loan with careful attention to protecting my interests. Lillian. Robert's voice was concerned when he answered. It's awfully early. Is everything all right? I explained the situation, reading him Sarah's text messages and describing how they'd excluded me from the vacation I'd planned and funded. Robert listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Lillian, he said finally, I need you to understand something important. That house loan wasn't structured as a gift. It was structured as a family loan with specific terms and conditions. If they've fundamentally altered the family relationship in a way that violates those terms, you have legal recourse. What kind of legal recourse? You can call the loan due immediately. You're listed as a co-signer on the mortgage, which means you have legal standing to require full repayment. Given their current behavior and the breach of family trust, you'd be well within your rights to demand immediate satisfaction of the debt. I felt something shift inside me as Robert explained my options. For 5 years, I'd been operating from a position of emotional vulnerability, always worried about maintaining my place in their lives, always giving more to ensure I remained needed and loved. But I wasn't powerless. I had legal rights and financial leverage I'd simply chosen not to exercise. Robert, I said, what would happen if I called that loan due while they're in Florida, enjoying the vacation I paid for? His chuckle was somewhat grim. Well, they'd have 30 days to either pay you the full $80,000 or face foreclosure proceedings. Given that they're currently spending money on luxury vacations instead of showing proper respect to their primary benefactor, I'd say the timing would be quite educational for them. I spent the rest of the morning organizing documents, making copies, and preparing a formal notice of loan acceleration. By noon, I had everything ready. All I needed to do was make one phone call to set the wheels in motion. As I sat there with the phone in my hand, I thought about Sarah as a little girl, how she'd run to me with scraped knees and broken toys, trusting completely in my ability to make everything better. I thought about the promises she'd made when I helped them buy their house about taking care of me, just like I'd taken care of them. But I also thought about that text message sent at the last possible moment to exclude me from my own planned vacation. I thought about being replaced by Marcus's parents and dismissed as non-immediate family, despite years of unconditional support. Sometimes love means teaching people how to treat you properly. I made the call to the mortgage company at exactly 2:15 on Tuesday afternoon, knowing they'd be somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, probably toasting their successful manipulation with complimentary airline drinks. The customer service representative was remarkably efficient once I explained my co-signer status and provided the necessary loan numbers and documentation. Mrs. Thompson, she said, I show you as having the legal right to accelerate this loan under the family relationship clause. If you'd like to proceed, we can have the notice of acceleration prepared and served within 24 hours. Please proceed, I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. I'd like them to receive the papers as soon as possible. Will they be at their primary residence? Actually, no. They're currently on vacation in Destin, Florida. I have the address of their rental property. There was a pause. Ma'am, are you asking us to serve foreclosure papers to people while they're on vacation? I'm asking you to serve legal papers to people who have violated the terms of our family loan agreement. The fact that they're on vacation using money they apparently don't have, while excluding the person who made their lifestyle possible, is exactly why these papers need to be served. The papers were delivered to their beach house rental on Wednesday morning, while they were probably having breakfast with Marcus's parents. I know this because Sarah called me 37 times between 10:15 and 11:30 a.m., and Marcus left 6 increasingly frantic voicemails. I didn't answer any of the calls. Instead, I spent Wednesday morning at my weekly volunteer shift at the animal shelter, playing with abandoned puppies and finding genuine peace in simple acts of caregiving. When I finally returned home and listened to the voicemails, the progression was quite remarkable. Marcus's first message. Lillian, there's been some kind of mistake. We got legal papers about the house. This has to be an error. Call us back immediately. His second message. This isn't funny anymore. These papers are saying you're calling our loan due. That's impossible. Call us back right now. His third message. What the hell do you think you're doing? You can't just destroy our family because you're upset about one vacation. This is insane. By his sixth message, please, Lillian, we can talk about this. Don't destroy our children's home over a misunderstanding. Please call us back. Sarah's messages followed a similar pattern, but with more tears and emotional manipulation. Mum, I don't understand what's happening. Why would you do this to us? The kids are asking why Grandma is trying to take away our house. Please fix this. I waited until Thursday evening to call them back. I knew they'd spent 2 days of their vacation dealing with lawyers, trying to understand their legal position, and realizing just how vulnerable they actually were. Sarah, I said when she answered on the first ring, I got your messages. Mum, thank God. Look, we need to fix this immediately. Marcus's dad knows a lawyer in Florida, and he says you can't just call a loan due because you're upset. I'm not upset, Sarah. I'm done being treated like a dispensable ATM rather than a respected member of this family. You texted me at the last minute to exclude me from a vacation I planned and paid for, then replaced me with Marcus's parents. That's not being upset. That's being disrespected. But this is about our house, our children's home. The house I provided the down payment for. The house that exists because of my financial contribution. The house that, legally speaking, I have every right to protect my investment in. There was silence. Then Marcus's voice in the background. Let me talk to her. Lillian, Marcus said, his voice strained. We can work this out. We made a mistake with the vacation. We should have handled it better. You made a calculated decision to exclude me after I'd planned and paid for everything. That's not a mistake, Marcus. That's a choice. And choices have consequences. What do you want from us? I want respect. I want acknowledgement. And I want a public apology for how you've treated me. A public apology. Posted on social media where all your friends can see it. The same friends who are currently seeing photos of your lovely vacation funded by the woman you excluded from attending it. The conversation continued for over an hour, but the power dynamic had completely shifted. They could no longer dismiss me or take my contributions for granted. They needed something from me now, and for the first time in years, they had to treat me as an equal rather than a convenient resource. They returned from their shortened vacation on Saturday afternoon. What was supposed to be a week-long getaway had been cut to 4 days because they needed to address the legal situation immediately. I'd agreed to meet with them Sunday evening, but only after they'd posted a public acknowledgement of their behavior. Saturday night, Sarah posted on Facebook, "I want to publicly apologize to my mother for our recent behavior. She has been incredibly generous and supportive to our family, and we failed to show her the respect and appreciation she deserves. We excluded her from a family vacation she had planned and paid for, and that was wrong. We're committed to rebuilding our relationship and showing her the love and respect she's always shown us." The post received dozens of comments, most from people expressing shock and disappointment at how they'd treated me. Several family friends reached out to me privately, sharing their own experiences with ungrateful adult children and offering support. It was validating to see that other people recognized how inappropriate their behavior had been. When we met Sunday evening, Sarah and Marcus looked exhausted and humbled. The past week had clearly been an education for them, not just about their legal vulnerability, but about how their behavior looked from the outside. "We want to make this right." Sarah began, her eyes red from crying. "We realize how badly we messed up." "I'm glad you understand that," I replied. "But understanding isn't enough. We need to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect, not just convenience." We spent 3 hours talking that night, really talking in a way we hadn't for years. They admitted that they'd begun taking my contributions for granted, that they'd let their new social circle influence how they saw me, that they'd started viewing my generosity as obligation rather than gift. Marcus was particularly honest. "My parents made comments about you being too involved, about us being too dependent. I think we overcorrected in trying to establish independence, but we did it in a cruel and thoughtless way. The problem," I explained, "wasn't your desire for independence. It was how you went about it. You could have had an honest conversation about boundaries instead of excluding me from my own planned vacation." We agreed to family counseling, something I'd suggested years earlier, but they'd always been too busy to pursue. We also established new financial agreements. Any future assistance would be documented properly as either gifts or loans with clear terms and expectations. No more ambiguous help that left everyone confused about obligations and boundaries. The house loan situation was resolved with a compromise. They would begin making monthly payments to me, treating it as the actual loan it had always been legally, but with reasonable terms that wouldn't strain their budget. This gave me financial security while allowing them to maintain their home and stability. More importantly, we established new family traditions that honored everyone's contributions. Future vacations would be planned together with costs shared according to everyone's ability to contribute. Family dinners returned to a regular schedule, but with rotation of hosting duties and shared cooking responsibilities. The counseling sessions were surprisingly helpful. Having a neutral third party helped us communicate more effectively and address underlying resentments on both sides. I learned that I had sometimes used financial gifts as a way to maintain control and ensure my continued importance in their lives. They learned that taking financial help while simultaneously distancing themselves emotionally had been hurtful and unsustainable. 6 months later, our relationship was different but healthier. I was no longer the primary financier of their lifestyle, but I was respected as a valued family member. My opinions mattered, my feelings were considered, and my contributions were acknowledged and appreciated rather than expected and dismissed. I also discovered a life outside my role as family benefactor. I joined a book club, started taking painting classes, and increased my volunteer work at the animal shelter. I began traveling with friends my own age, taking trips that were about my enjoyment rather than family obligation. The most surprising development was that Sarah and Marcus began seeking my advice more often. not because they needed financial help, but because they valued my experience and perspective. They'd call for parenting advice, ask about relationship challenges, and include me in major decisions because they wanted my input, not because they needed my money. Last month, we took our first post-crisis family vacation together. This time, everyone contributed according to their means. The planning was collaborative, and the focus was on creating memories rather than demonstrating financial generosity. Emma, Tyler, and Daniel were delighted to have both sets of grandparents involved in different aspects of their lives without competition or exclusion. The beach house we rented was smaller than the one I would have chosen alone, but the joy was bigger. Watching Marcus's parents and myself work together to create special experiences for the grandchildren, seeing Sarah navigate relationships with all the adults in her children's lives, with respect and appreciation, feeling valued for who I am rather than what I can provide. These were the vacation memories I'd been trying to buy for years without realizing it. I learned that love without respect isn't really love at all, it's manipulation. I learned that giving without boundaries isn't generosity, it's enabling. And I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is teach them how to treat you properly, even if that lesson is difficult and uncomfortable. The relationship I have with my family now isn't the same as before the crisis. It's better. It's based on mutual respect, clear communication, and genuine appreciation, rather than financial dependency and emotional manipulation. My grandchildren see me as a person worthy of respect, rather than just a source of gifts and treats. Sarah and Marcus value my presence because they want me there, not because they need what I can provide. Have you ever been in a situation where your generosity was taken for granted by family members? How do you balance helping loved ones with maintaining respect in the relationship? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves that setting boundaries isn't mean it's necessary for healthy relationships. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about family relationships and finding your strength when you need it most. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you teach people how to treat you by what you're willing to accept. Sometimes the most loving word you can say is no. Take care of yourselves, and remember that your worth isn't measured by what you can give others, but by who you are as a person. You deserve respect and appreciation, especially from the people you love most.